Final exam, Humanities 1230. My name is Stefanie Hauser.
And I'm Nancy Harmon.
And today we are doing comparisons of two famous artists, Neil Diamond
And Justin Timberlake.
Thank you. Oh, you guys are awesome.
Very
Wonderful.
I'll be presenting the singer, the songwriter, the blonde, curly-haired mogul, the actor, the man. The man who's bringing sexy back, Justin Timberlake.
I'm bringing sexy back. Yeah. The mother boys don't know how to act. Yeah. I'm thinking special what's behind your back. Yeah. So turn around and I'll pick up the slack.
And today I'll be talking about Neil Diamond. Neil Diamond grew up in Brooklyn, New York. He was born January 24th, 1941. His parents immigrated over from Poland and are Jewish. In high school, Neil Diamond sang in the 100-member chorus, and he was actually a classmate with Barbra Streisand. The two of them didn't actually meet formally until about 20 years later. But Neil had a friend named Jack Packer, and the two of them formed a group called Neil and Jack, in which the two of them made two songs together, but they could never sell them, and then Neil went off onto his own and formed a solo group.
Justin Timberlake, on the other hand, was born more than 40 years after Neil Diamond, January 31st, 1981. He was born in Memphis, Tennessee, so he was totally a Southern boy, and his parents' names were Randall and Lynn Timberlake. Yes, people, that is his real last name. So Justin Timberlake, when he was growing up, he was brought up in a Baptist church, and he was always singing in the choir. So that's really where his vocals got to blossom and where he got his love of music. Now, when he was 12 years old, he got one of the major big breaks of his life in the new Mickey Mouse Club, and that was in 1993. And he was starring with other stars such as Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, and his future bandmate, J.C. Chazes. So after that, he eventually, in 1995, when he was around 15 years old, ended up joining and creating with his mom, Lynn, the group NSYNC. And now NSYNC, every single letter of NSYNC, N-S-Y-N-C, stands for a letter in the name of every single band member, which is pretty interesting. So at that point, really the band took off. NSYNC became an instant hit for teenage girls all over the place, and Justin Timberlake was the new heartthrob. And he was only at age 15, he was like completely the man that every girl thought was going to be her future husband. So that is pretty impressive for a man that young to be that popular and that gifted.
So in 1958, Neil Diamond actually went to NYU on a fencing scholarship, but he dropped, he was, majoring in pre-med, but he dropped out 10 credits shy of graduating because his songwriting and his interest in music was just pulling him in that direction. So in 1966, he cut his first album. And in that same year, he wrote I'm a Believer for the Monkees. And what was happening was he was filling a musical void between Frank Sinatra, oh Blue Eyes, I love him, and Elvis Presley.
Wow.
He actually received a lot of criticism because people thought he was too middle of the road. But, and then in 1972, he wrote the album for Jonathan Livingston Seagull, and even though this movie was a flop, box office flop, he actually won a Grammy
for the Jonathan Livingston Seagull soundtrack. He continued on. Some of his top hits were Cracklin' Rose. It hit number 1 in 1970. Sweet Caroline was actually inspired by JFK's daughter, Caroline Kennedy, and that reached number 5. Song Sung Blue, 1972, was also a number 1 hit for him. And You Don't Bring Me Flowers was a duet he did with Barbara Streisand. That was like one of my all-time favorite songs in 1978. 1979, he had a bout with cancer, and during that time frame, he, as he was recuperating, he was asked to play the lead role in The Jazz Singer. And this movie, he received a lot of criticism for it. It got negative reviews, but actually it grossed like 3 times the amount of money that it cost to produce it.
Wow.
And this actual soundtrack that he wrote the whole soundtrack to this too. It sold 5 million albums, which was pretty incredible. It's a really good movie.
So Justin Timberlake from 1993 to 1995, as we know already, was in the new Mickey Mouse Club with Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera and JC Chazes. So 1995, he quit the new Mickey Mouse Club, and it was to become part of a little band that we know as NSYNC. So, of course, he rose to stardom through NSYNC. He got very popular. He was part of NSYNC for 7 years, so that means in 2002 he decided to start his own solo career. So he came out with his first hit song, Like I Love You. And then later that year, his first solo album was called Justified, and it was at the top. It sold 7 million copies. It was a big giant hit. After that, he actually received 2 Grammy Awards in 2004, and it was shortly after he had this Super Bowl performance, which a lot of people probably remember, with Janet Jackson, where there was a little bit of a wardrobe malfunction. So after his little wardrobe malfunction with Janet Jackson, which seemed to just make him even more popular than he already was, which some people think perhaps that was the whole point of it, a publicity stunt.
Yep.
He went on to collaborate with different artists such as the Black Eyed Peas in a song called Where's the Love. He also collaborated with Nelly and Snoop Dogg and Nelly Furtado and even Madonna, and he catapulted one of her hits called 4 Minutes into the top 10 hits during that time. So very popular artist. A lot of people know him even to this day, and he also went on to be very popular with film as well, but we'll get into that later. What I think is really interesting about Justin Timberlake and Neil Diamond is that they were both considered pop artists during the day, but they're clearly very different singers, different artists. Their genres, though they're called pop, both of them, they're very different.
Yeah, like Neil Diamond, we were saying about Sweet Caroline. I mean, he was writing about the president's daughter. And Cracklin' Rose was actually, he went to, I believe it was Canada, and Cracklin' Rose was I believe, a drink.
Wow.
So, then he wrote, the song You Don't Bring Me Flowers. That was actually written for a movie that was supposed to be produced, which never was produced. So then that's when he asked Barbara Streisand to come and do the duet with him. But I feel that Neil Diamond's music was more touchy-feely, more of how he was feeling about the people that he knew, whereas in Justin Timberlake, nowadays is a lot more sex and hip
Yeah.
thrusting
Well,
involved.
catch one of his albums that he did in 2005, Future Sex Love Sounds. Like, point in case right there, like his pop genre of the modern day was much more about sex, seduction, being hot,
Yep.
sexy this, sexy that, sexy back.
Right. Yeah, and like Neil Diamond's the jazz singer. A lot of people think that that movie was made about his life, but it was a remake of a 1927 film, The Jazz Singer. But clearly, he fit the role so well because he's Jewish. He's a singer-songwriter, and the songs that he wrote for it were just, I mean, just so in tune for the motion picture.
So maybe we sound a little bit old, but I think that the pop artists of the day have a lot less class than the pop artists of days gone by. Definitely.
Exactly. And you can even see in the albums how much they've changed throughout history. You have the vinyl record, which you don't see anymore. Let me get it out here. It came in this little pretty protective covering, the vinyl record. Ta-da! And then they moved to what, the cassette tapes?
CDs, or cassette tapes.
Cassette tapes, which they came out around the 1980s, I believe, somewhere
Or
in
even
there.
later, 90s.
80s,
Or
well,
80s for the cassette.
yeah, and then the CDs
In the 90s, right?
that came out. So a lot of artists obviously have gone to the CDs now because they record so much more time on them and can put a lot of material, videos even.
Yeah.
But I've noticed that sometimes some of the artists actually go back to their original cassette tapes when they want to make more songs or new songs,
Wow.
because that way they protect their copyright. They can't be put out on
Wow.
YouTube and so forth, which is
Oh.
pretty interesting.
Very
So
interesting.
they've kind of reverted back
Yeah.
sometimes.
Wow. Well, that I know of. I believe that JT only has CDs, so that shows you a clear differentiation in just generations of
Yeah.
these two musicians. So
Yeah, I don't think
that's-
you're going to find him on vinyl record at the flea market.
No, I don't think so. Unfortunately, that would be pretty. So, since you mentioned Neil Diamond's acting pursuits, I do think that it is notable to say that Justin Timberlake did venture into some acting himself. And he's actually a pretty talented actor, if I might say so,
Yes, he
unlike
is.
apparently Neil Diamond, who didn't really get very high accolades for his acting career. But his first real film that was kind of his breakout film was in one called Alpha Dog, and it was in 2006. He also played in one called Black Snake Moan. I've never really actually watched that one before, so I don't know if it was good or bad. He also played in Shrek the Third, The Love Guru, just to name a few, The Bad Teacher, The Social Network was a really big one for him. And then he also played in this particular one, I think was my favorite, and it was Friends with Benefits with Mila Kunis. So that one was pretty funny, and that was in 2011. So that was very interesting. Now, he also is known to be a comedian. As a lot of you probably know, he's been on Saturday Night Live several times. One of my favorite little skits that he did ever, let's just say, hashtag Jimmy Fallon, hashtag Justin Timberlake, hashtag Saturday Night Live, hashtag funniest skit ever. That's all I'm gonna say. If you guys haven't seen it before, I highly suggest it. Google it, it's amazing. You'll pee your pants. It's so funny.
Hashtag, you must watch it.
Hashtag. That's all we have to say. You'll get it when you see it. But I think it's really cool that he's so like diverse. Like he can act, he's a comedian, he's a singer, he's a songwriter, he has all of these different talents. Obviously, you know, from his Mickey Mouse days, we know that he can dance as well. So he's really kind of got the full enchilada. So that's pretty cool. Now, I think we should move on to a little bit more sordid area of his life, his personal life. I don't know if Neil has as exciting of a life as Justin, but Justin definitely likes to date female actresses on par with his fame, that's for sure. He was very well known for his relationship with Britney Spears back in the day. Of course, they knew each other from the Mickey Mouse Club, and when NSYNC was really just starting off, they actually toured with Britney Spears, and they were like the opening act for her, for some of her tours and stuff. So that's how they got to know each other, and then they were together for 3 years. And then he also dated Cameron Diaz, who they also played on Bad Teacher together, and they definitely had some on-screen chemistry, to say the least. And that also lasted for 3 years. I think everyone thought they were going to get married, but they never did. So in 2007, he started dating actress Jessica Biel. Now they kind of had an on-again, off-again relationship. And then finally, in October of 2012, they got married in Italy. So happy ending. He's still happily married as far as we know. So there you go.
Well, Neil, obviously the times are a lot different. So he wasn't as promiscuous as Justin was.
Shocker.
Yeah, right? So his first marriage, he married Jay Posner, 1963. They divorced in 1969, but they had 2 children together. Then he married Marcia Murphy. They got married in 1969. That's kind of close together.
Oh, snap. You said he wasn't promiscuous.
You never know. And they divorced in 95, so they lasted a little bit longer. They also had 2 children together. And then he married his, I believe she was like one of his managers, Kate McNeil, and they got married in April 2012, and they're still married today. So that's as far as I know about him and his sordid life, but it seems a little overlapping, so maybe they left out those details. Yeah. So, but another interesting thing that I wanted to say about Neil Diamond is, you know, back when they had the concerts in the 60s and 70s, they didn't have as much screens and where everybody in the theater, if you will, could see the performance on stage. So he would always wear these very flashy, sequin, sparkly costumes, and that's what he's known for, so people without binoculars could still see him.
Wow.
So I thought that was...
And that's kind of opposite of Justin Timberlake, because he's known, especially now, not maybe necessarily in his earlier years, he was a little bit more flashy, but hey, it was the 90s, so we'll let him slide on that one. It was a crazy time for fashion. But now he's all like Mr. GQ with the slick back hair. He's got the suit and the tie, which actually Suit and Tie is his newest album that he just released as well. So I would say he's kind of trying to ride off that image.
Yeah,
But that's what's popular today, whereas in Neil Diamond's day, the big flash, the 70s, the 80s, you know, that's what was in.
Yep.
So
Yep.
2 different times, but that was the popular for the day. So now we'll be starting our fun facts session of the night.
Okay.
So why don't you go first with Neil fun facts?
Okay, so for his role in The Jazz Singer, which was 1980, Neil Diamond became the first ever winner of the Worst Actor Razzle Award. So that was pretty significant. In 1981, in his acting debut in The Jazz Singer also, he beat out Kirk Douglas, Anthony Hopkins, Richard Dreyfuss, Michael Caine, Robert Blake, and 4 others to win the first ever Worst Actor Razzie Award. His penned hit, Heartlight, was inspired by the movie E.T., which is kind of cool. He was inducted into the Long Island Music Hall of Fame in 2007, which is kind of cool because that's where my family's originally from, so they probably ate lox and bagels together. The last thing, which is cool, he ran away from his home in Brooklyn when he was 13, and he went to the Midwest where he formed this musical group called the Roadrunners, and they performed in coffee shops for 2 years before he left and returned back home. But like
Wow.
13, yeah.
13, that's really young.
You think?
Times have changed.
So let's hear about #JT.
So Justin Timberlake, one thing I thought was really cool, when he was 10 years old, he got a chance to sing at the Grand Ole Opry, and when he was 11, he got to sing on Star Search, which was a very popular hit. It kind of was like the American Idol of the day, and he sang an Alan Jackson hit called Love's Got a Hold on You. All of you country music lovers will probably know that. He also, when he got popular, he founded his own music label, and he also was the very first celebrity to get punked on the show called Punked, where Ashton Kutcher would play practical jokes on celebrities.
Yes.
A couple other things, I thought this one was good because it's my favorite as well. His favorite Baskin Robbins flavor is daiquiri ice. I don't even know if they have it anymore, but I always used to get it when I was a little kid, and I crave it still to this day. And last fun fact of the night is that Justin Timberlake is worth $100 million. So when he leaves Jessica Biel and we get married, I'm going to be a very rich woman.
And that's it, folks.
That concludes our night.
On the boats and on the planes, they coming to America, never looking back again. They coming to America. Oh, don't it seem so far away? But we're traveling.
Hey, Justin, what's up?
Not much, Jimmy. Hashtag chillin'. What's up with you?
Just been busy working. Hashtag rise and grind. Hashtag is it Friday yet?
Hey, check it out. I brought you some cookies. Hashtag homemade. Hashtag oatmeal raisin. Hashtag show me the cookie.
Sweet. Hashtag don't mind if I don't. Pretty good. Hashtag getting my cookie on. Hashtag I'm the real cookie monster. Hashtag no.
Delicious, right? Hashtag I did it all for the cookie. Hashtag LOL.